to correct people when I was young. Now I don't care. Now you call me whatever you like.
Right, welcome everybody. The interview started just before. We were talking about Ted, and I thought Ted was just short for Edward, but apparently it's Theodore. What else was it?
No, my name is Ted, but Ted can be short for Theodore or Edward.
Right, okay. So, a quick hello and we're good to go. Welcome to the show, Ted, Edward, Theodore. There you go.
Hey!
We get a name in. Now, brilliant to meet you. Absolutely lovely. I was really keen on this one because return on relationships and being good to people seems to me to be contradictory, but it isn't, is it? And we're going to get into that in a moment. Firstly, I'd like to welcome you all the way from the United States, if I'm right.
Thank you. I'm here in South Florida, home of COVID-19, the epicenter in the United States of America. Congratulations, everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's a great deal of fun. That's, hang on, ooh, it's this one here. I've done my smiley faces, but it's actually really difficult. Oh no, that's the wrong one, Christ. Yeah, anyway, I'm in a co-working in Paris. You're in Florida. Lovely to meet you. Before we start, just like to tell you, you're part of a big experiment in entity-based content models where we try and take entities, you're an entity, I'm an entity, we link them together and we see how much I can impinge on your brand SERPs and your YouTube brand SERPs. Now, I did some experiments and you have the honor, dubious honor, of being my first non-wiki knowledge graph entry. This episode got into the knowledge graph with no Wikipedia, no wiki data. And if Anton will show it, I've actually managed to link you to me, to this episode, and to my company. There you go. All four. Ted Rubin, Kalicube Tuesdays. This is the event that I created to do all this with. And Jason Barnard, all linked through to this one event with a confidence score of 12, which is not bad. So, this is the start of this entity-based content model that I'm doing with WordLift actually taking off. And I'm proud of you, proud of me, and really happy that you actually joined in because I don't know why it happened with you because you're the only guest who isn't in the knowledge graph to start with, and I don't know why.
Well, I got to tell you, now that you've totally confused me, this is really good because now my mind is whirling and we can just, jump right in. But I am surprised because I tend to be connected to people in one way or another. But Anton connected us. So I think that says it all.
Well, what it means is you're connected to people, and you talk a lot about that, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but Google hasn't seen it. Google hasn't understood it. It isn't confident that it's understood these connections, and that's what the knowledge graph is all about. It's confidence that it's seen these connections, that it understands them, and that it is correct when it brings them up in front of people. So if somebody says, and if you look at your brand SERP, which I also did, if we search your name, my company site for your profile and the photo from my company site come up on your brand SERP, and Anton should be able to bring that up. There you go. So I'm on your brand SERP. When somebody searches your name, I'm afraid I just appear, or my company appears.
Okay.
And then I had a look at YouTube, and you've done so many videos that have been watched by so many people that we're like number 70. And I think Anton should be able to show that. Maybe not. Yes, there you go. We're right down at the bottom there, number 70.
Okay.
So the experiment goes really well in some circumstances and not others. So thank you for being part of my experiment. Welcome, Ted. Photofy, can you tell me what that is? I thought it was a philosophical statement, but it's not, is it?
Well, in some ways, it is a philosophical statement because it's mine and my business partner's statement that companies need to start empowering employees if they want to power their brand. That employee-created content is really the content of the future. But basically, Photofy makes it easy for companies, employees, and partners to make original branded content and share it via their networks in under 30 seconds. So, in today's environment, as we both know, not only are people incredibly busy, But companies are under so much pressure to constantly create content that if they were to pay either internal creative employees or agencies to do it, they wouldn't be able to keep up from a financial standpoint, nevertheless, even as a quantity standpoint. But if they start, our belief is that if you start empowering your employees to do it for you and allowing them to do it, because so many companies are afraid of their employees creating content, not only will you have the volume of content you will need, but if you allow them to share it via their own social channels, you'll expand your reach exponentially.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. A couple of weeks ago, Ryan Foland was talking a lot about that. The idea that you empower your employees to actually communicate on your behalf, and all you need to do is educate them, or educate them, that's a rotten word, isn't it? It's encourage them to do it in a way that reflects well on both of you, because both of you will benefit.
I have had that conversation with Ryan.
Oh, right. Okay, that might explain. Maybe he was trying to jump the gun because he knew you were going to come on and he knew that he would steal your thunder.
Well, you know what? He's welcome to my thunder. I do everything I can to share my thunder. As a matter of fact, there's so many people in this world that, especially in the influencer marketing, the social marketing world, that see their content being used by other people and get upset by it. I go the complete opposite way. I encourage it. You don't even have to, I prefer, of course, if you give me credit for it, but I really don't care if you don't, because it's more the concepts and the mindset I'm trying to share than I'm worried about whether I get credit for that or not. And 9 out of 10 times, somebody that knows I created the content will jump in and either, share that it was something that came from me or let me know. But either way, I'm just happy that people are sharing.
Yeah, it's a really, really nice way of looking at it. I think a lot of people and brands are afraid that somebody else is going to steal the limelight, the thunder, and that all their immense creation and their creativity has gone to waste or isn't going to get recognized. Just quickly back onto the videos. This video went live and we've jumped from 73rd to 3rd. And what YouTube is doing is pushing this because it's live to your audience. So anybody searching Ted Rubin right now is going to come along to this webinar, whether they liked it or not.
Well, I hope they like it.
Oh, well, I hope they do too. If they like you, then there's a very good chance they will like this, unless they really don't like me. We'll see how that goes as the interview goes on. Now, I was really interested in return on relationship, which sounds to me, and I really don't want to be rude, but it sounds to me very calculating. And then be good to people sounds exactly the opposite. So how do you put the two together?
So I'm really confused. I've never, ever heard somebody say to me that be good to people and return relationship seem like polar opposites. They're actually incredibly aligned with each other. And in some ways, they've moved apart, as I've come to define be good to people a little bit differently than some people do, especially the people that started the whole thing and create all the gear and what their mindset is about it. So back to return on relationship. I don't see it as calculating. For me, return on relationship, or the hashtag I use, RONR, simply put, is the value that's accrued by a person or a brand due to nurturing a relationship. ROI is simple dollars and cents, but ROR is the value, both perceived and real, that will accrue over time through connections, trust, loyalty, recommendations, and sharing. And I do my best to use it to define and educate companies, brands, and most importantly, people about the importance of creating authentic connection, interaction, and engagement. And, for me, I guess I understand your perception of maybe it being calculating, but if you read a little bit.
Sorry, I'm not saying you're calculating. It's just the phrase itself. But it might be because I'm incredibly British.
Well, I've dealt with the Brits a lot, and I got to tell you, presenting to them as an audience can be difficult because nobody smiles or gives you any kind of real feedback during the presentation. But I do love the expression "brilliant." Because, when people say it to me, it makes me think I'm smart when actually they just kind of like me.
Right.
Or what I'm saying.
What I should then say is, instead of saying brilliant, I'll say insightful.
Oh, well, I like that. But back to what you were saying is, I know you're not saying that, but the point I'm making is that if you read more about what I write, and you read my book, Return a Relationship, or you just research it a little bit more, you'd understand that I bring a lot more to it than just a one-liner. You know, as we all know, memes and one-liners have their limited capability of passing along what they actually mean. Yeah. So you need to usually do a little research a little bit deeper to understand it a little bit better. So what I say all the time is do for others without expectation of anything directly in return, because it will come back to you in the way you build your reputation. So another thing I like to say a lot is that a brand is what a business or a person does. A reputation is what people remember and share. So when you become someone that's known for valuing relationships, building relationships, feeling that there is a return that comes from relationships, number one, that builds your reputation and people talk about it. Another thing is when I talk a lot about return on relationship, it's in contrast to return on investment. Now, I like to tell people that I don't believe, now contrast is different than the word versus. I'm not saying you want return on relationship versus return on investment. You always want a return on investment. I don't care if it's in your business or it's even in your personal life. We all live our personal lives with return on investment. How much do we get out of what the people we spend time with? Do we want to spend more time with family, with friends? You know, the value that we give to the time or things that we dedicate to what we do in building relationships. So when it comes to return on investment, I believe return on relationship enhances your return on investment because it brings the relationship factor into everything that you're doing.
Right. Okay. Brilliant stuff. And one of the things you say, I mean, I did actually listen and read some of your stuff, despite the fact I'm playing the fool and pretending I didn't. What's important to you is your daughters and what they bring to you. So I did actually research it. One of the things you say is, ask somebody about something that really matters to them. So I'll ask you about your daughters.
Well, my daughters are everything to me. It's a difficult subject to me. They've been alienated from me. I went through a very difficult time if you have done your research and seen some of the things. But what I bring a lot of what I've learned with my daughters to everything else I do, whether it be business or whether it be my personal relationships, in that I have something for my daughters that I will always carry with me and no one can ever take away. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. And I've learned that this holds true again with what you do, accomplish, or don't accomplish in business, the friends you have. I have friendships, as we all have, that have been great friendships, and then for some reason they end. Someone moves away, something happens, there's a fight, there's a disagreement, you know, politics get in the way. But no one can ever take away what you already had, the love you built, the memories you have. So for my daughters, you know, I first of all, I always have hope for the future, and I fortunately still have somewhat of a relationship with my younger daughter. But I live my life vicariously through them. I access the things that they post. Thank God for Google, because even if your older daughter blocks you from her social channels, you can still access what she's posting. So congratulations to my older daughter. She just got engaged. I was not told personally, but I am aware. And I'm very happy for her because he seems like a great guy, and she looks very happy. And I hold in my heart incredible feelings around all of those things. So even though I might not get to directly participate, I can always participate in my own way. And I think that it is important. And I'm going to stop in 1 second. I know I'm not going to go over my minute, but I think that's important in a lot of other aspects of our lives.
Sorry, Ted's teasing me because before the show I said I tend to interrupt before a minute because after a minute nobody wants to listen to any of us. And I don't always follow that rule either. So I'm complete rubbish because I impose the rule, but I don't follow it. I'd be honest with you, I actually got, I don't know, it's goosebumps when you were talking about what we've done, what we've achieved, what people think about us, the things we've lived through and the feelings we've had is something that nobody can ever take away from us, whatever they try to do, which is a bit hippie, but I absolutely love it. I'm right in the middle of a lot of that. Anyway, another thing you say to move on is, and I like this, is we need to take back the word friend.
And give it real meaning again, because look, Facebook did an incredible thing. They really did from a marketing standpoint. We're talking about some marketing here in that they took ownership of the word friend. Yeah. I mean, friend has become completely synonymous with Facebook. And what it's done, and I'm not diminishing from it, but what it's done is it's taken away from the value of the word friend, because what it's become is that you click a button and you make a friend. But we all know that's not the case. I mean, if I were to meet you and Anton brought us over and just introduced us briefly face to face and I shook your hand, that handshake is not a friendship. That handshake is an introduction to, a door opener to building a friendship. So when I say that we need to take the word friend back, what I mean is we just need to start thinking about it and putting more perspective and more directive around it. Like, so the perfect example, you brought up my daughters. One of the things I used to talk to my daughters about a lot was about friendship. Their mom is a borderline personality. I don't know if you know much about that, but they tend to shove people aside throughout their lives, and there are not people there long term. And again, this is not to demean her or that, but because of that, my daughters would see me with all the friends I built up over the years, and they'd constantly say, Daddy, you know, you have so many friends. How do you have so many friends? And I'd look at them and I say, girls, I don't want you to misinterpret this. It's not because I'm the greatest guy in the world. It's because I work very hard at it. Because even before these tools that they grew up with, I reached out to people every month. I had lists of people I had to call at different times. I kept a list of birthdays, anniversaries, kids' birthdays, and I would send cards and I would call people on the phone. And I continue to do that today. And I'm going to go on, and you're not going to stop me right now because I want to finish with something else, in that I also explained to them that there's all different types of friendships. There are acquaintances. There are work friends. There are dear friends. There are lifelong friends. There are those friends that will always be there for you no matter what, that might be as close or closer to you than family. And you need to put people in those categories, because when someone who you might have perceived as a great friend proves not to be, that doesn't mean you get rid of them, not a friend anymore. It just means they get put into a different category and someone that you can enjoy under different types of circumstances or expectations.
Right, sorry, brilliant. And I was actually thinking about that as you were talking. I was thinking about that there are people who say you can't have more than 5 friends, or you can't maintain more than 5 friends. But what you're saying is if you categorize them, then you can. And you've got 5 close friends, you've got 5 friends in this context, 10 in another context, 50 drinking buddies, and 100 beach buddies, or whatever it might be.
And it goes into different parts of your life. You know, Google had it right when they built the circles concept. They were not a social company.
But it failed. Oh, the poor people.
It failed because they're a search company, and their whole mindset isn't set to what they had to create. But their idea of circles, like people say this thing about how you can only know 150 people and really know them. There's this whole psychological.
Oh, it's 150. I thought it was 5.
No, it's well, that might be close friends, but no, it's 150. But the point is, it can be many more than that, because there's different parts of your life, there's different circles, there's different ways people overlap, and then there's different times and points of your life that also come back and resurface over each other, where today I might have this 150, but a month from now it might have shifted into this area, and then it might come back at some point, or someone from here, because of what your charts in the beginning and how you know each other, might come back around and join you as part of a different circle.
But that's incredibly interesting, because I mean, from my point of view, I'm looking at the knowledge graph, and it's basically Google trying to understand who we are and what our relationships are with other entities. And what you're saying is that this idea that things change over time, and what Google has to do for the knowledge graph is keep track of the fact that you and I have a relationship as of 2 months ago until today, and from now on we probably won't. So this is a relationship that is built and is going to die, or probably die.
Well, hopefully not. But look,
I'm not going to be in the 150. I would bet.
Look what you posted with the YouTube videos. It was 70, and then all of a sudden we're engaging, and it moved up to 3.
Engagement. Oh, sorry. Yeah, excuse me. Sorry, you said the word engagement. That was something I really wanted to talk to you about, because you're saying get people to engage, and your brand is going to be living. It's going to be moving forwards. And I'm talking from brand SERP point of view, which is my obsession. Engagement pushes content, great content, onto your brand SERP, what people see when they search your brand name. It's all about engagement, and Google is constantly looking over us, watching who's engaging. Is it a relevant audience, or are we trying to cheat? Tell me more about engagement in the wider sense, because I'm terribly narrow about it.
Well, engagement builds the look. I like to say that relationships are like muscle tissue. The more you engage them, the stronger and more valuable they become. Yep. So the engagement is what creates that relationships engage, like when you engage with people, that's how you build a relationship. That's how you get to know people. That's how you learn more about them. Okay, so I'm single and I have been for a lot of years. And one of the reasons dates often don't go well is because I don't ask a lot of questions.
Tell me about it. Sorry, excuse me. That came from the heart, man.
I don't ask a lot of questions because I believe in learning as you go. Like, I believe that if somebody asks you a direct question, you get the answer they want to give you. Whereas if I experience something with you and see the way you react, so how do you treat waiters and waitresses? Well, I love waiters and waitresses. I'm always good to them. Well, the real truth is I'm going to watch and see how you relate to people, how you treat them, what you do. So that's a big part of how I get to know people. So it annoys people when I'm with them, because it annoys women when I'm with them, because they're asking me a million questions and they want to know why I'm not asking them questions. And they're like, don't you care about me? Aren't you interested? I am interested, but I'm interested in learning in the wild, in the real life, in seeing how people react. Of course, I'll ask certain questions when there's just things you need to know. But in essence, it's the engagement, it's the interactions that build that knowledge base that to me is so important. So I like to watch other people's engagement. So I go on social media and I watch feeds that are happening in real time, whether it's in Twitter, whether it's in Facebook or LinkedIn, and see the way the people are engaging and responding to each other. I like to see, like, can you piss somebody off? Like, so I'm very political. And I believe there's no more important time than there is right now to speak your mind and say what you're thinking, especially in this country here in the United States. And I've had a lot of people push back on that, or they'll try to get me angry, but I do my best to keep it professional or just not let it get to me. And when I'm done or someone's pushing me over that edge, and you can notice this if you watch some of my feeds, I'll say, make it a great night. That's my way of saying, thank you very much. I'm done. Because I don't think there's a real positive way to continue this conversation. And I watch a lot of conversations because it's my way of learning, how does Jason interact? What does he do? And it also teaches me how to interact with you, because I say this all the time. Communicate with people the way, if your goal is to sell somebody something or sell yourself to them or build a relationship, and it's your goal, it hasn't been declared yet as a mutual goal. Mm-hmm. It's your job to communicate the way they want to communicate. If they like tweeting, that's where you should be doing it. If texting is their preference, I learned this most from my daughters when, I'm sure, are you a parent?
I am, yes.
Okay. So, I did go to your Facebook page, but there wasn't a lot there for me to get without us.
No, in fact, my Facebook account got closed down, so you went to the wrong place, because the only thing I've reactivated there is the professional stuff.
But I'm sure you've experienced it with your kids, and I was a divorced dad, so it was hard for me because when you're not right there, you can't just wait for them to come home to talk to them. So I would call my kids because, back when they were younger, you called them. And of course, nobody would answer. But I'd immediately get a text back that said, "What?" with an exclamation point. Really? And that was their way of saying, I hear you, I'm here, but I am not picking up the phone. If you want to communicate with me via text. And you get that a lot in our lives, whether it's personal lives or it's business, or someone just keeps communicating with you on LinkedIn, and that's just their preference. Now, what I say to people is, if I'm trying to sell you my friendship, our relationship, whatever it is, sales, then I need to communicate in your way. But I tell people this all the time when they reach out, like, let's say like you did, and I'll say, please email this to me. Or that's my preference for communication. And if you want to communicate with me, then you have to do it the way I prefer. If your is to reach me.
And part of the way then of building this relationship is to look at the person, see where they're interacting, see where they're engaging, and spy on them, basically. I mean, you spied on me.
Look, I just set an appointment with somebody for Photofy, who I was reaching out to, who I knew. I emailed them 3 different times. I got no response. Because I prefer email. That's where I started. But then I went to LinkedIn, messaged him on LinkedIn. I got a response within 24 hours. And by the way, even though I've said to him, I need to send you an invite, whatever, it has still continued because that clearly is his preference, which now I have embraced because my goal is to get him to do something I like him to do.
You were talking about, well, I can't remember one of your interviews, you were talking about the fact that as a kid, you used to get people around and used to bring them all in and make things happen. And in French, I'm French, by the way, by association. What do you call it? Adoption. And there's a word which is fédéré. which is the equivalent of federal, but in French it means somebody or something or a brand that brings other people, other entities around them in a kind of positive manner. And that's what you seem to have been doing. I mean, the idea of fédéré, but I've never found an equivalent English word for it.
Well, I've learned that I always knew I was good at bringing people together. I used to view it more as a one-on-one talent or a ability to bring two parties together from a business standpoint. I always thought of myself as a networker over all the years, like whether it comes from literally from nursery school on. Every school I've been in, every job I've had, every organization I've been a part of, I've never left without at least one or two very strong relationships that have stayed with me for the rest of my life. And again, I used to view it as being a networker. What I discovered and learned over the last bunch of years is that what I am is a community builder. Because
no, sorry, excuse me. That's probably the closest I've heard. Community builder is the closest I've heard to fédérateur.
I bring people together into communities, different ones, not just, I don't bring them into my community. Sometimes it's my community, sometimes it's separate communities that I create that work for those groups. And what it leads me to is this whole concept of that a network gives you reach, but a community gives you power.
Right.
Because networks connect, which is very valuable, but communities care.
And communities engage, if we come back to engaging.
Communities engage, they care, they watch out for each other. Just think of it from the community aspect of where you live and people watching your home. And when you come home after you've been away for a weekend and they tell you your teenage kids had a party and the cops were there, you learn these things.
Oh, this sounds like that film that I can't remember the name of, where it all ends up in the swimming pool and it's a bit of a disaster. Pardon me?
Risky Business, perhaps?
Oh, I can't remember. Oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, anyway, sorry, that just makes me think about the fact that building a network is one thing, and that's kind of a knowledge graph is basically a network of entities with relationships. But what I've been seeing is that Google actually looks at the engagement and the exchanges within that network to see which are the relationships that are the most important. And I think that's phenomenally important from my perspective as a digital marketer, especially with Google, is that the engagement between the entities within a knowledge graph or with a relationship with each other is incredibly fundamentally important. And just making that connection is not enough. What do you think of that?
Well, I like to say that a network is a series of nodes, and in order to make it valuable beyond the one-on-one connection, you need to bring it together and create something. Right. And that's where community comes in.
Brilliant. So you deal in knowledge graphs as well. We're both knowledge graph fans. This is amazing. You build them around communities, around yourself and around ideas and concepts. And thank you very much, Ted. That was absolutely brilliant. Well, quick goodbye.
I want to share one last thing, just because we talked about it briefly, and you saw my hat, it's be good to people. Yep. And, you brought it up and you said something, I don't remember if it was before we started going live or we were live, but you said something about being kind and being nice and how return a relationship and be good to people, how they come together. What I've brought more into the idea of be good to people, and I try to explain because some people don't understand it. They'll say, well, you say be good to people, but then you're so anti-Trump, or you're so, upset about certain things happening in your country, or, you feel the police need to evolve and become more peacekeepers than they are policing units. And what I try to explain to people is that for me, be good to people goes way beyond just being nice or being kind. Being good to people means caring about them, looking out for them, doing for others when they may not be able to do for themselves, making your society and your country a better place. That's all about what being good to people is about. It's about stepping up, doing more, speaking up, and caring, because we are the change.
Brilliant stuff. And return on relationship is about doing things that actually generate value, be it for you or for them or for the community as a whole. Thank you very much. That's a really lovely way to end it. A quick goodbye to end the show. Thank you, Ted. Your name is Beeden, not Rubin. I got confused then. Thank you very much, Ted.
Thank you very much, Jason. Really enjoyed.
Great stuff, man.